Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, a new lazy boss claims that he owns me and treats me like I am worthless. This was the worst mistake in his entire life. The title story starts like this. The company that I work for deals in technology, specifically for large pharmaceutical companies. We have services that allow these companies to track the data they collect from drug trials, create blood pressure and blood sugar monitoring devices, and offer technical support with these devices and programs as well. I work in the development team, which means I'm one in a group of people that attempt to make the wants of these companies become a reality. As a manager in the development team at this company, I'm one of the final checks on new programs being created or updated, assist in testing for bugs, and I'm on call if there's a situation with a product that is out of production that is having issues. It can be stressful at times, I'll admit that wholeheartedly, but I like the fact that I'm able to create things that help with someone's well-being. Whenever I see one of the products I assisted with developing in a store, I feel like I'm actually making a difference. Now onto the boss. Since I'm the manager of my department, I have another manager above me that is the associate manager of product development, which has them overseeing not just my department, but 3 other teams as well. I'd report to them if there was an issue delegated to our team incorrectly, if there's an issue within my team that I'm unable to solve, or if there's a development issue that needs to be escalated upward. The boss I was under before had been in the company for years, working their way up. When they were offered a promotion to the next rung on the ladder, they accepted it eagerly. I thought that the company would hire someone within one of the teams to take over, but they went with an outside hire, which, as I'm seeing now, is usually not the best case scenario for a good boss. Well, we will call this manager Henry, since there are other names that I could call him that wouldn't be appropriate for this place. So this Henry guy was onboarded, introduced in a company-wide email, and meeting with the teams he would have under him. But after a week, the amount of contact we were able to get from him was slim. The development, production, external IT, and technical teams all work on one floor of the same building, and the manager for all of these teams has an office there as well. Henry never went out of his office unless he was headed to a meeting with the higher-ups or the bathroom. We would get messages from him via email and our internal messaging system, but never got to speak with him face to face. I kind of understood, in this section of the field we are not that chatty to begin with, but we never really got a hello or great work from him at all. There was an issue I wanted to escalate, and after messaging and emailing him the information, I never got a response. I thought that he didn't actually look at his messages until about 3 days later, when he emailed me several files that had to be checked for bugs and some customer issues that needed to be investigated. Now I am in the development team, so by the time there are complaints months after a device or program is released, even if I'm on call, I need to field that to a member of production or external IT for investigations. I told Henry this, letting him know to go through those teams for the customer issues. I could handle the bug fixes without issue. I got this message right after. Henry, this is not a request. I need you to do this. This falls under your jurisdiction. Me, but this would be better handled by IT or production. Development doesn't assist with issues when they've gone live unless they've been checked over by those other teams that something was missed. Henry, I don't care. Get it done before the end of the week. So I screenshotted those messages, but did as I was told. I did reach out to the 2 other teams for assistance, but I was able to get what I needed before the deadline Henry set. Then he did the same thing 2 weeks later, and then the week after I finished that task, then 2 weeks after I finished the other tasks. I reached out to the appropriate teams to assist with the issues that I'm not able to handle or investigate myself and get proper support, but it was as if Henry was just handing out the jobs that he'd been asked to do. I did not want to make a bad impression, but after the 3rd time I promised myself that I would stop. Henry would send emails along with his requests, highlighting that because he was my manager, he had the final say in what I did, and if I didn't complete my tasks by his deadline, he would write me up or speak to the higher-ups about demotion. I made sure to save the emails, already generating a small pile of evidence that Henry really was not the best person. This came to a head one Friday afternoon when I got an email with tasks about a go-live slated to happen at the end of the month. Henry tells me that he needs all of the information and other details by Monday. I message him directly, letting him know that these tasks don't fall under development and should be going to production. I get the following messages back. Henry, I don't care. I'm giving you this and it needs to be done. Even if you have to take the entire weekend to do this, I want everything completed by Monday morning. Me, this is gonna take more than 2 days, even if it's not under my jurisdiction. Henry, I own you, so whatever I tell you is what needs to be done. If you keep complaining about this, I will go straight to the top. Don't think I won't. I screenshotted that thread and decided that I've had enough of being treated like a slave, so I do the request in the few hours I have left during my Friday shift and then head back home. The information was mostly guesswork and I didn't reach out to any of the other teams, so when Henry reaches out again for something big to be completed, I do the same thing. Henry never met with me about the completion of the project, so I was never sure if I did anything right, but with the 2 he had given me, he sent me some angry messages about how much I had screwed up. One day after I submitted a blank document on a bug report that was never investigated, Henry came out of his office. And he was pissed. I cannot actually type what he said to me, a lot of the words were being too vulgar to post here and the rest just devolving into angry ramblings. In short though, he was more than pissed and threatened me in front of my team, called me some unsavory words, and said that he would have fired me for the work that I gave him over the past 2 projects. I felt like I couldn't even move from my desk, frozen in shock at what was being spewed at me. I'm grateful that it didn't escalate to anything more than shouting, but there were 2 co-workers that approached me afterwards that captured most of the rant on their cell phones. Cell phones are allowed in the office and the only reason they recorded what happened was because they thought I might be in danger with just how hostile Henry was acting. They actually sent me videos, and once I was able to get my heart to stop racing, I headed to HR. I gave them all of the evidence I had, including the chats, emails and videos of what Henry had been putting me through for over a month. I thought it was enough for them to think it was serious, that I hadn't just gotten all of this evidence for nothing, but the woman who I spoke to looked through my documents and told me outright that if she gave this over to the head of HR, then Henry could still find a way to retaliate against me. But isn't there a retaliation clause in our contracts? I remember signing something when we did harassment training this year. Woman, yes there was, but it doesn't mean that they can't still do something to you. It's your job to protect us in the workplace. How is this even legal? Woman, look, take this up with your manager and then maybe we will have a case. I don't feel safe going to my manager. You saw what he just called me. Woman, then I'm not sure what you want me to do about this. I was furious. I sent an email to HR just to see if they would give me the same answer, and the same woman reiterated what we had talked about that afternoon. As soon as I got home, I called up a lawyer. I made sure to get someone that was educated in the rights of workers and workplace harassment, and immediately after I talked to him, I felt at ease. I knew he was gonna get things moving when my HR department didn't. I sent him everything I had, including the HR email, and he told me with just the emails he read, I would have a case. I spent the next week deciding what I wanted to do and how I wanted to handle everything, and then I told my lawyer that I wanted to file a lawsuit against my company, specifically mentioning my boss and the HR department. The next week of work was abuzz with gossip. Word had trickled down from the higher-ups that the company was being sued, but it wasn't clear as to what or why. A few people in my department were able to put 2 and 2 together and came to my office to let me know that they supported me. I also received a few emails from members of the other teams Henry oversaw, and they explained that they had also experienced similar treatment from him since he became a manager. I made sure my lawyer got their testimonies as well, and he laid out as much as he could for the company to deliberate over. The company did not even take 2 weeks to respond. They provided settlement packages to anyone that was involved with the manager and fired Henry outright. They also did a complete overhaul of their HR department, so this wouldn't happen again. Everything was settled out of court, but I was just glad that everything got settled indeed. The company did offer Henry's position to me, but I didn't take it. I liked being in development and I wanted the opportunity to go to someone in the company that really wanted it. The company did end up choosing a company hire, and after 3 months of working under them, I've never been happier. And yeah guys, if you have any stories about awful bosses from your own life, then I would love to hear these stories in the comments. And now don't turn off the video, we have another super interesting story from r/amItheAhole. It is titled, "Am I the a-hole for accidentally ruining my brother's ex-girlfriend's clothes?" So this all started about 3 months ago when my younger brother, 27 male, asked if he and his girlfriend, 25 female, could stay at my house for a weekend while they were apartment hunting in my city. I love my brother dearly. He's always been the sweet, sensitive type who wears his heart on his sleeve. When he told me that he was moving to my city to be closer to his girlfriend, who had just gotten a job here, I was excited but also a bit worried. They'd only been dating for 8 months and something about her just seemed off. The weekend they stayed with me confirmed all my suspicions. From the moment they arrived, his girlfriend acted like she owned the place. She immediately sprawled all her designer clothes and expensive toiletries across my guest bathroom, complained about the water pressure in my shower, and kept making snippy comments about how quaint my house was compared to her parents' place in the suburbs. "Oh, these towels are interesting," she said while running her manicured fingers over my perfectly normal bath towels. "I usually only use Egyptian cotton, but I guess these will do for the weekend." I bit my tongue for my brother's sake, who kept giving me apologetic looks whenever she was not watching. The final straw was when I overheard her on the phone with someone while I was in my home office next to the guest room. "Yeah, the place is whatever," she laughed. "But we are only using him to split the rent anyway. Once I'm settled in my new job and can afford a better place, I'll figure something out." I wanted to burst in there and confront her right then, but I knew my brother wouldn't believe me. He was completely smitten and I didn't want to be the one to burst his bubble, so I kept quiet, hoping I was somehow misinterpreting things. When they left on Sunday, she managed to forget a substantial amount of her belongings in my bathroom, including her precious North Face jacket that she had mentioned cost more than most people's rent, at least 3 times during her stay. I gathered everything up and texted her about it. "Oh my god, can you pretty please mail those to me? They are like super important," she replied with about 15 different emojis. "Especially my North Face, it is literally irreplaceable." I told her I would send everything once they got settled in their new place. Over the next few weeks I watched from the sidelines as my brother excitedly prepared for their move-in together. He spent his entire savings, nearly $5,000, on the security deposit, the first month's rent, and moving expenses. He even bought new furniture since she insisted his existing stuff was too bachelor pad. And well, exactly 1 week after they moved in together, everything fell apart. I was at work when I got the call. My brother was sobbing so hard I could barely understand him. She cheated on me, he managed to get out. With her ex. She said that she would never stop loving him, and now that she's got a good job here, they are getting back together. She is kicking me out. I don't know what to do, sis. My blood was boiling. "Come to my place. Right now." He showed up at my door looking completely broken. It turned out she had been planning this all along. Her ex was moving to the city too, and she had used my brother to handle all the expensive and stressful parts of relocating and setting up an apartment. Now that everything was settled, she wanted my brother gone so her ex could move in. "But the lease," I started. "Only her name is on it," he said quietly. She said it would be easier that way since her credit score was better. I was so stupid. To make matters worse, she had convinced him to put all the utilities in his name, promising to pay him back for her half. Now she was refusing to pay anything, leaving him not only homeless but also with hundreds in utility bills for an apartment he could not even live in. That is when the calls and emails started. Multiple times a day she would contact my brother demanding her stuff back from my house. Each message was more entitled than the last one. "I need my North Face ASAP. It's literally a collector's edition and cost over $400. You cannot just keep my property. My La Mer skincare routine is worth more than you make in a month. If you don't send it back, I'll report you for theft. Either mail me my stuff or pay me $2,000 for replacement costs. It's your choice." My brother, still heartbroken and just wanting her out of his life, called me practically begging. "Please sis, just send her the stuff back. I cannot take the constant messages anymore. She is even having her friends harass me now." And that is when I had an idea. I gathered all her things, the precious North Face jacket, the designer clothes, and expensive toiletries. I also grabbed some paper and a permanent marker to write what I thought would be a perfectly nice note for her. "Hey, I hope you're doing well. Sorry for the delay in sending these back. I wanted to make sure everything was properly packed. Best wishes." Now here is where things get a bit complicated. You see, I may have accidentally written this note while it was resting directly on top of her North Face jacket, and wouldn't you know it, that permanent marker bled right through the paper, leaving nice big letters all across the front of the jacket. But wait, there's more. When I was packing up her toiletries, I might have forgotten to check if all the caps were properly secured. Somehow her expensive shampoo, conditioner and body wash all leaked out during transit, creating quite an impressive tie-dye effect as they mixed with the marker ink on everything in the box. Oh, and her razor? Well, I was in such a hurry to pack everything up that I completely forgot to put any protective covering on it. By some strange coincidence, it managed to slice up several items during shipping, including making some rather artistic slashes across the front of the North Face jacket. When I shipped the package, I made sure to get insurance and tracking. I'm thoughtful like that. About 3 days later, I got a notification that it had been delivered. Almost immediately, my brother's phone exploded with messages saying, "You bitch, you ruined everything. Do you know how much all this cost?" She sent photos of the damages, each accompanied by increasingly hysterical messages about lawyer involvement and lawsuits. But here is the beautiful part. Remember that insurance that I got? Well, let me tell you. When she tried to file a claim, she had to prove the value of the items, and it turns out that collector's edition North Face jacket, it was a regular $180 jacket she had bought on sale, those La Mer products, convincing fakes from an online retailer. She never contacted my brother again. It's been 2 months now, and my brother is doing much better. He's living with me while he saves up money for a new place, and he even started dating someone new who seems genuinely sweet. Last we heard, his ex's new/old boyfriend already moved out of the apartment, leaving her to handle all the bills alone. But recently, my parents found out about what I did to her clothes and toiletries, and while my dad secretly high-fived me, my mom thinks that I went too far and should have been the bigger person. She says I could have just mailed the items back normally and let karma handle things. So yeah, Reddit, am I the a-hole for giving this girl's stuff back in less than perfect condition? And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP was the a-hole here or not? I'm really curious what you have to say. Comment number 1, you actually handled this perfectly. You documented everything, got insurance and made sure you had proof of the item's condition before shipping. If anything, she should be thankful you didn't pursue the utility fraud charges. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole. I know I will get downvoted for this, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. Yes, she was awful to your brother, but deliberately destroying someone's property is never okay. You could have just mailed her stuff back normally and let karma handle it. Instead, you stooped to her level and showed that you're just as capable of being petty and vindictive. Being protective of your brother is fine, but this was straight up property damage and you know it. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here. The ex is obviously terrible for using your brother and scamming him with the utilities, but you deliberately damaged her property and then tried to play it off as an accident. That is childish and wrong, no matter how much she deserved it. Your brother's ex sucks for being a manipulative user, you suck for destroying her stuff, and honestly, your brother sucks a little bit for not seeing the red flags soon. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Everybody has different fond memories of the fun things they did as a kid when the weather was nice. Maybe it's the artist in me, but I always loved to go outside and just cover the entire driveway and walkway in chalk drawings. I did not even get upset when it rained or the sprinkler went off and washed it away. I was actually happy that I had an empty canvas again. Now, this might sound really random, but my point of that little trip down memory lane was that once my kids were old enough for it, I got them one of those jumbo buckets of sidewalk chalk. Just like their dear old mom, they loved it, and for years they would draw pictures and even have me getting on the ground with them to draw. After a bad divorce, I ended up moving into a new neighborhood with my kids. They were 5 and 8 years old and both nervous and excited about the new house. It was winter when we moved, so it wasn't until a few months later when it was warm enough to go outside and break out the chalk to draw. I'm gonna pause the story here and talk about the HOA in my new neighborhood. I didn't really have a choice to join it and didn't have much experience with them. I saw they had a lot about keeping kids safe, so I actually was for it at the time. I did not know about all the horror stories I found when looking things up online until way later. I knew one thing for sure, and that was they were very strict with their rules. I could not afford any fines digging into my limited budget, so I really tried to make sure I did not do anything wrong. Some things like mailbox regulations and things you can plant on your property did not seem to make much sense to me. Things like not leaving trash all over the property and having to pick up after your dog, on the other hand, I liked. It kind of evened out for me and I had no issues with the HOA or being part of it. That was until that warm summer day. Okay, now back to the story. I do monitor my kids, but like every single parent, there's a moment of nature calling and having to figure something out fast. They were on the property and I would only be gone for a few minutes. To avoid 2 kids being upset and taking forever to get inside, I went by myself. I warned them to not move from where they were until I got back. I was gone maybe 5 minutes, and to the credit of my children, they took what I said literally. They had not moved an inch despite the fact that there was a screaming lady and 5 cops standing very close to them. I think I stopped breathing before getting my kids up and pushing them behind me. Everybody was talking, including my 2 kids, but it all seemed to melt together. I needed everybody to stop for a minute so I could find out why the cops were suddenly at my house.
I was lucky enough that one officer told the lady to be quiet for a minute and I was able to get a word in. Me, what's going on here? Officer, ma'am, are these your children? Me, yes, I just went to the bathroom for a moment. Did something happen? Officer, this woman called us claiming that you and your children were illegally defacing private property. Me, what? HOA woman, you heard him. I saw what you were doing and there's a clear rule in the bylaws about vandalism. Me, we were not vandalizing anything, and yes, it's private property, but it's my property. We didn't go over the line or something. HOA woman, that doesn't matter. You're breaking the bylaws and probably the law with your chalk. How do we know that those aren't gang images or something that will attract horrible people? I look down and see the 3 drawings we had so far, a bunny, a house and a car, along with a ton of random scribbles. Obviously, very dangerous. The cops would not arrest me since there was no crime with it being my own property and not defacing anything. The woman was not done yet, and before I knew it, the HOA was suing me for over $110,000, claiming that I not only broke HOA rules but did so in a way that ruined the neighborhood, causing damages that they would have to pay for and wanted me to have to give them money for. Their lawyer just started going through multiple HOA rules that they were claiming all applied to the case. One about hate symbols being etched into the neighborhood which would scare innocent people, one about no gang activity being allowed, and of course one about vandalism that went on to say no permanent alterations to the streets can be made without HOA approval. One example given being spray paint and how graffiti can ruin a neighborhood. And well, these were all the things they claimed I broke on that day with my kids. I wish I was kidding. I was smart and took photos of my driveway that day so the judge could see exactly what was there. The HOA was questioned about if the symbols being drawn were known by them or the police as being gang affiliated. We all knew that it wasn't, but I guess certain things just have to be asked anyway. Finally, I got questioned on why I did not think that I should have to pay them anything for what happened that day. I hit them back with their own HOA rules and focused on where it talked about the permanent altercations. Since it was clear to everybody the nature of what was drawn didn't break any rules, I told them that sidewalk chalk does not fit under the same categories as things like spray paint because they are easily removed. Either with natural rain or a hose, I have never known chalk to last for more than a few days to a week at most. Also, that it was clearly my driveway in the picture, and I was not doing this in the streets where they might have some kind of case with it. So therefore, the case was obviously thrown out by the judge because the HOA has nothing substantial to actually sue me for. It was made clear by that whole ordeal that it was perfectly fine and I could draw with my kids the entire summer. Still, I felt like there was one more thing I had to do before I could drop the entire thing. I went to the store and got a ton of chalk to give out to any kid in the neighborhood that wanted it. I cannot tell you how much joy it brought me to drive through the area and see so many driveways and sidewalks filled with the drawings of the children. The HOA was probably fuming about the entire thing, but honestly, that just made it better for me.
Before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/maliciouscompliance that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "You cannot call your practice better dental." So my son called me with this story. He went to the dentist today and they had changed their name from Better Dental. He asked if they've been bought out and they said no, well, sort of. The ownership has changed since Dr. Draper's not with us anymore, so we cannot use the name Better Dental. It's a funny story. A few years ago, another dentist complained that the practice was called Better Dental since you're not supposed to imply you're better than other dentists without a specific reason. The board was going to make him change the name of the practice, but he legally changed his last name to Better and they let him keep the name on his practice. My son was skeptical, but I checked the Board of Dental Examiners website and it's 100% true. David Ella Draper changed his name to David Ella Draper Better, and the board closed its file and issued no disciplinary action. It's kind of loophole defiance rather than malicious compliance, but I think it fits. And yeah guys, please check out my endless playlist on the left if you cannot get enough of my content, and I will see you again tomorrow.